what's up, guys? Welcome back. It's Style Over Substance with me, Scarlett.
And myself, Mim. Hiya.
Hiya, Mim. How you doing?
Hiya. I'm all right. I'm not bad. Yeah. I'm sat here like, obviously our listeners can't see me right now, but I have this black headscarf on. And then every time I put these white headphones on, it's really giving me like Craig David Born to Do It vibes.
I hadn't thought of that, but as soon as you said it, you literally could be a fancy dress for you.
Yeah, I'm Craig David, but not the Keith Lemon one. Spare me.
The authentic one, yeah.
The real Craig David, yeah. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. I got my jab on Sunday. Number 1 jab.
Oh, yeah.
One step closer. Yeah, it was a bit of a fluky. They had too many left over, but that sort of perked me up on the path to that. And I haven't grown a tail yet, so
good. Good. I mean, you could still pull off a tail, so no, it's not all bad.
So my sister-in-law was like, "What happens like if we do all just have like a really ridiculous side effect from all of this?" And I was like, "Well, the scientists will just have to get working on a cure for that. Like, we'll hopefully all be in it together." But yeah. So what is your fashion story this week?
So my fashion story it's a bit of like fashion news, but I don't really have many answers for you, to be honest. But Naomi Campbell today, at the point of recording, has announced that she is now a mother.
Yeah.
Yeah, out of nowhere. I mean, I follow her and I know, well, this is me speculating. Obviously, I don't know the woman, but I think she either adopted this little girl or it's through surrogacy. Nothing's actually been announced as to how she came to become a mother. But
because she announced something like 5 years ago that she had everything in place to become a mother.
Really?
I saw that as a headline that went alongside it.
Oh. Yeah. Well, I don't know, but I think it's very interesting. And I think it says a lot about, I think over the past couple years, obviously, Naomi Campbell is massive, had like a historically big and long career in the fashion industry as like one of the biggest models. But I really feel like over the past few years with her like YouTube channel and her like social media presence and stuff, she's become more into the spotlight, and it's almost like she's had more gigs and more jobs and things. And it says a lot about being 50, being at a new phase of your career, a new phase of your life, having achieved everything, and then just being like, right, when everyone else is winding down, I'm ramping up.
Yeah, good for her. I also think like she is a bit in the spotlight because I think we have this real sort of like penchant for like that supermodel era. You know, I think it made like, yes, there's sort of, I mean, it's not even the heyday of like a Gigi and a Bella these days. Like, I couldn't tell you who the it model is these days. You know, like, I guess it's not helped that we haven't had a catwalk show, but we've sort of like, I don't know if Instagram's killed the supermodel. So like, yeah, it's sort of, I think there's been a real like appreciation for the likes of a Naomi where you're just like, I'm a nosy lady, so I want to kind of know, you know, I'm guessing she didn't carry the baby. So like, did she have a surrogate? How did that work? You know?
I want to know all the details, but I don't know if we're going to get that.
No, she's quite a private lady.
Especially with her like love life and her family sort of life. I think she's oversharing in other ways.
Didn't she like date Liam Payne from One Direction for like a hot minute last year?
Oh, I think that wasn't last year.
Or 2 years ago.
It was like 2 years ago. I don't know if that was real.
I hope not.
She did date Skepta though.
I feel like she would have eaten him alive.
Oh, for sure. I think that was just kind of made up, to be honest. I think you have to be a particular kind of person to not bore her. I feel like she'd get bored of you, really.
I feel like she'd be rolling her eyes if your story wasn't 10 out of 10.
She'd eat you alive, yeah. Oh no, I don't think he was.
Power to her. Oh man. Terrible.
So yeah, what is your fashion story?
So my fashion story is that a girl that I used to live with at uni has just got married, I believe in Egypt. And I'm convinced her dress was Elie Saab. And if it wasn't, I have a feeling her sister wore Elie Saab, but it just made me re-fall in love with Elie Saab. So for context, guys, at uni, at school, that was like Mim and I would just be like, it's Elie Saab show day. Like this is the king. She's a king of couture. And it just made me think, what organ do I have to sell?
Yeah. I mean, you got
Elie
2
Saab?
kidneys.
I know.
From what I hear, you only need 1. So
maybe give some blood, some platelets.
I don't think that goes very far on the black market. Blood. It's pretty cheap.
Might not be these days. Hey, you never know.
Yeah.
But it just made me re-fall in love with Elie Saab and just the beauty of it. I think you could spot sort of Elie Saab a mile away. And yeah, we're super chic. I might post a picture if
don't know if you can. If you block out her face or something, or maybe
I might block out her face or something like that, or find like the equivalent online. But
it also just reminds me of the fact that couture or at the very least very high fashion, bespoke fashion that we see on these runways are to be worn and to be lived in and to be bought by real people. I mean, most of the time, the only chances we get to see it on people is if it's been gifted or it's just been loaned to a celebrity or an actress or an actor or something. And it's like, no, these people who we see it on are not the ones propping up these brands. They are literally the walking advertisement for these brands. They are for people who are getting married, who are celebrating big events in their life or other people's lives. And it's like mind-blowing that someone's either gone into an Elie Saab store or like seen something on the runway and been like, that's for me.
That I'll have that.
Put it on my card. It's insane.
Yeah, and especially that's not in like, I mean, in this crazy leagues, like I watch a lot of Real Housewives and like you get it more in that circle when they're talking crazy money. But yeah, it makes you remember that, like, I guess it's meant to be somewhat approachable in some ways.
I mean, approachable.
I guess not couture. I guess not couture.
Yeah.
But we have to remember that, one day.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And that Chanel bag and that Chanel suit. Yeah.
So this will mean I'll never get a house deposit, but I'll look great on my wedding day.
Yeah.
We interrupt this broadcast to remind you, go follow us on Instagram, Style Over Substance Pod. Shoot us an email, styleoversubstancepeak@gmail.com. Find us on YouTube, find us on Twitter. We've got all the links on our Instagram. You know what to do. But anyway, our topic this week is not so frivolous. After we asked you guys for some requests on topics, someone mentioned talking about how the fashion industry sort of favors a one-size mold of life, or kind of, we have to all conform to the fashion sizing system.
Yeah.
So we thought we'd talk a bit about that, really.
Yeah. So it was a really good question. I mean, it's one of those topics that have been brought up a lot, that one size fits all, have to conform to a particular look and stuff. This sort of topic has been touched on so many times before by so many people, but we wanted to give our 2 cents and how we approach the topic and how fashion contributes to that, and how much fashion really contributes to the ideal that we see nowadays. as it's not the same as it was like 10, 20 years ago. And we still think it's a really relevant conversation, but it's a way that we are hoping to approach it in a little slightly different way, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. And also I actually think that in the last few years we've made the most progress with it than we have for a long time. Like, I think there's way more, I know, like, the terminology I'm probably not going to get super right, but is whether it's body confident, whether it's girls who aren't a stick insect basically being influencers, like whether it's that, I don't remember seeing that a while back. It was always just girls who were conforming to sort of a pretty standard. You could line them up in a row and they'd all look quite similar.
You know what? You've really touched on a really good point so early on. And I think for such a long time, the reason that we saw fashion promoting a certain way, or we only saw a certain image within fashion, is because we had gatekeepers. And like Vogue in particular, we're just going to talk about like Vogue in this sense, but there's so many other examples. Because it's like one company who owns like most of the magazines, but you had these gatekeepers who said yes and no, and who could be part of the club and who couldn't, and who could be a model and who couldn't. And now social media is brought up again, but social media, it's like you could have your own YouTube channel, your own Instagram, and just flaunt what you've got, and people that will resonate to people who are just normal, bog standard in a good way. Like, it's not a negative thing to be bog standard, but other people can like see your image and resonate with that. And I think that's the biggest thing that's brought about change in recent years.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's sort of come from a lot of the movements that happened in the last year of like, where's everyone's representation, whether that be skin color, whether that be size. You shouldn't have to go to like, I think the shop's called like Wallace, like plus size clothing, I mean, that's just ridiculous that that's sort of still a thing. And there's also loads of like naysayers who would be like, well, that should cost more money because it's got more fabric, and stuff like that. But it's also just sort of remembering that, like, you know what, maybe that person's had 3 kids, maybe that person wasn't born with a fast metabolism, and maybe that person just likes to have her pudding, and like the rest of us have all been taught to be like, oh, I shouldn't, oh, that's naughty. And maybe they've got the right attitude of like, yeah, I want some chocolate cake, and I will have a cheese board, and like are living their best life.
Yeah, it's about recognizing different people at different stages of their lives with different experiences and different ethnicities, ages, genders, whatever, and just recognizing people for who they are. We do a much better job of that now. But yeah, I think that it all feeds into the idea that if you're going to sell something to someone, you got to sell them the ideal. The thing that they are not, that they could possibly aspire to, is like the crux of the issue. So it's like most people aren't, really slim. And if you're really slim, well, you could either be slimmer or you could either have a better figure, which means you could have like bigger boobs, more tone, less cellulite,
a nicer face, better hair.
Exactly.
Smaller nose,
the ideal,
bigger eyes.
Yeah, there is no limit to things you could potentially change. And it's like through that, we're all aspiring to be a certain person, and through that, like, live a certain lifestyle. But
for sure,
I think what fashion does is, at the very least, it's like you might not have all the money that you need to have like the big house, the big car, the this, the that. But if you're fashionable enough and you have enough luxury on your arm or something like that, you can at least look like it. You can at least like fool yourself and others around you into believing that you're this cool, suave, stylish, potentially wealthy person. And I think that's fashion's role in it.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess it's a really tricky one of like, there is a body shape that's small and slim, you know? So you have to represent that as well. There are people who struggle to put on weight and are just naturally a size 6 and just naturally super slight. And so like, why can't those people be represented too? Like some of those models, that's actually their size and they're not, you know, depriving themselves of stuff like that. But yeah, I guess it's more a case of representation and all of that stuff. But I guess we should sort of go back to why this sort of skinny frame has become the thing that it's become, because we've obviously had different idolized figures over the years. Like one of my favorite things is to sort of look back and it's, you know, Marilyn Monroe was once the most beautiful woman in the world. And that's not the figure that was idolized in the 90s. I would say we have the Kardashians to attribute with a curvier figure being more accepted and attractive, deemed attractive now. But then we went the 1920s, it was a flat boy figure. Then we sort of had the new look where it was great to have a waist and hips and boobs, and if not, the new look did that for you. And then again, it went back to the 60s and it was that stick figure with Twiggy and all of that stuff. And then I think curvaceousness became a thing again in the 70s and 80s. But for our generation, so we're both 90s babies, the 90s was the birth of like this real drug-fueled anorexia. Like it was cool to look ill, kind of like.
And in the 2000s as well, when we were kind of like coming of age, definitely.
And so Kate Moss was a big part of that. And before any Kate Moss fans think I'm attributing any complexes people have, I'm not trying to pin anything on her, but it was said that because of how slim she was, she set a new standard for supermodels. And also she's attributed with that quote, "Nothing tastes as good as skinny feels."
Yes.
And I know at times when I've been younger, I have heard that in my head of like, you know, when you're sort of like, and you're like feeling a bit bad about yourself. You're like, oh, nothing tastes as good as skinny feels.
Yeah. At least I'm going to look great. I'm not going to look bloated or something. Oh my God. And I think that like Kate Moss era, it was so part of that like rock and roll lifestyle. It's like you could look a bit haggard and you could look like you hadn't eaten in days, and you look like before recording we were talking about how like Hello magazine and, you know, these tabloid magazines, and you would see constantly so this is not even fashion magazines, but it was all part of the same thing. It was like you would see celebrities, models, whatever, coming out of taxis, drunk, high, whatever, rock and roll, partying all night. And they had quite clearly eating disorders. And you saw those images all the time. And it became kind of normalized in a way. And then it was reflected on the catwalks, because Kate Moss and the likes of them were also walking on these catwalks looking very slim, very skinny.
It was like their diet was just drinking drugs.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. And that's how you keep your figure, essentially. So yeah, what you said about that, the idea of being skinny, although it seems like that is the ideal fashion pushes, it hasn't always been the case. These things swing and roundabouts, and they come and they go. And we lived in a time where being a lot skinnier was the ideal, like size like 4, UK 4, 6 was like the thing. And now it's different, and we see different ideals that are kind of being introduced for better and for worse. I think now we see like the splitting of more normalized body shapes, but also at the same time, more extreme body shapes that don't happen in nature for everyone.
Yeah, I think the positive thing, like you said a bit about Vogue, I'm using the Kardashians because they're the easiest cultural reference.
Yeah.
But like, okay, it's great for people who naturally have big bottoms or whatever to be represented. but their figures aren't natural. They get help, whether it's surgery or not. They get someone who helps sculpt their body. They pay a lot of money to make their boobs still perky. Hello, like Kim's had like what, 4 kids, and her boobs, she can wear no bra. Like that's not normal, you know. No one over the age of like 40s boobs should sit that perky, you know. Mine certainly don't, and I'm not there yet. Like, so it's just even little things like that. It's the fact that they've paired this tiny waist, these really thin limbs with these giant bums and curvy waists, which naturally would have got smaller. And so then that also means that someone who is more of like a straight up and down shape is then going and getting bum implants. And it's like having this negative effect. And the problem is that the way we're meant to look at it is, oh, this body's being like represented, not like I'm meant to look like that. It's meant to be that there's a spectrum and everything's beautiful. But we sort of lack a lot of the in between. Which hopefully is something that will sort of be made up over the years, that there isn't just from Kate Moss to like Kim Kardashian. You know, like there's someone who might be pear-shaped, there's someone who's like, you know, got big legs but a tiny top. Like, I don't know, I think that it's problematic that I think we just aspire to be someone.
No, I agree. I think that the problem comes when, if you're a fashion house, or whether you're a big fashion house or like you own a small brand, we can talk all day about be who you are, embrace all your flaws and who you are as a person and blah, 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 blah. But let's be real. Every time each and every one buy something, we're thinking of how I'm going to look in the future on holiday, how I'm going to look in the office, how I'm going to look at my wedding. It's always like we're projecting image of how we want to be and who we want to aspire to be. Yeah, I think of myself as I am as a person now, but a more elevated version of myself if I were to buy these pair of jeans. In the future. If I were to buy this top, this coat, I would be a better version of myself. And so it's very easy for us to blame maybe other things, fashion and whatnot. But I think it's very hard for us to fully let go of the idea that we do want to idealize ourselves, and fashion is such an easy way to do that.
For sure. And actually that touches on, fashion is trying to sell you a dream. But I'll ask you, do you think that dream and that fantasy comes more with expensive items? Or is it more of like, say, a daring purchase of like, you wouldn't normally wear that, so like I'm saving that for like, you know, because like you mentioned holidays, like I wear different stuff on holiday than I would wear in England.
I know. I do the same thing as well,
because A, temperature, B, why not? You can be a different sort of person in the sun. I don't know. Do you find that sort of is in correlation?
Oh, I don't know. Oh, I think obviously the more money you have, the more options you have. But I think,
but for you to spend, if you spend more money on something, I mean, so say it's maybe like a bit of a splurge, are you then like fantasizing the best version of yourself in that?
Yeah, I think I would be lying if I said no. I mean, we
all do it. Don't worry.
I mean, we have a podcast and we talk about luxury fashion half the time, and it's like, to me, an elevated version of myself is like a wealthier version of myself, or it's like wealth, like an expensive fashion is intertwined with looking really polished and really well put together. To me, those things are like, when I'm visualizing it in my head, I'm not saying it's the truth or that it's real, because you can spend like £500 on something at what is it, Zadig and Voltaire. It's so expensive, but you still kind of look like a hobo. But in my head, when I'm visualizing expensive luxury fashion, I am thinking it's like a better version of me. And I think with age, you kind of aspire to that more. Like when I was a teenager, like I wasn't out here trying to look expensive necessarily. I just wanted to look like maybe a bit cooler and a bit like individual or whatever. But I definitely think with age, giving off the air that I'm not as poor as I am is never a bad thing.
I love that.
What about you? What would you say to that?
I definitely think when I visualize like certain outfits, or like even the prospect of not even my own wedding, but a friend's wedding, or if I've got a bridesmaid's dress, I'm picturing the best version of myself. And that might be my arms looking toned, being like as slim as I want to be, like having a bit of a tan on my skin, my hair looking nice, and like it's this perfect version of myself. And a lot of that is very sort of surface level beauty, you know. But I also think that comes with, I know what I like in myself. I know what size I naturally, well, not even, it's probably more than my natural weight. I know what size I would like to be. I know when I look and feel nice, that kind of a thing. But yeah, it's all superficial and very superficially driven, but that's why these industries are as huge as they are. But yeah, and also we've got to remember that one of the biggest issues is that fashion comes in sample sizes.
Definitely.
And that's got to be a size, you know. And the problem is that models tend to be on a smaller size. So the samples have always been on a smaller size. And so then what that means is that other people we see in the spotlight, such as celebrities, actresses, singers, if they want to wear these samples on the runway and not pay for a dress, they best be that size.
Yeah. It was like with the whole Harvey Weinstein scandal as well. His wife owned Marchesa, and Marchesa were known for their like evening dresses.
Beautiful dresses.
Yeah, it was a really successful brand. But I mean, he helped his connections, and the fact that he was putting all these gorgeous film stars in his films, and then they were made to wear Marchesa down the red carpet. I mean, they had to make sure they could wear her dresses whether they liked it or not. Like they were kind of made to fit into that aesthetic and that size, even when it was promoting a film that had nothing to do with fashion. So that whole sample size thing is, it really does influence, like it trickles down to all of us.
Absolutely. And also like I saw this Blake Lively interview. So that's do you know who Blake Lively is?
Yeah.
And so she filmed like a film where she was mainly in a bathing suit. I actually don't think I've seen the film. Just like, I think maybe 6 months after having a baby. And she got into like really good shape. She's got an incredible figure as it is.
Yeah, she does.
But she could have maybe had a bit more of a poochie pouch, as I like to call it, or something like that. And she sort of now wrestles with herself that she didn't give more of a genuine portrayal of, I had a kid 6 months ago. This is my body. It's been through a lot. And accepting that. But it's because there's almost like this expectation for her to look amazing, or anyone on film, but like that none of us want to see that. And I think that's the perfect way of being like, someone needs to break that barrier at some point. Someone needs to be like, I just had a kid. So I might look 3 months pregnant because it only came out 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah. You know what? It's so funny you say that, because when I think of actresses who have pulled off the best red carpet looks while pregnant, there's one look of Blake Lively, and I think she's in this blue dress. And she's not like 9 months pregnant, but she's made it halfway. She was kind of halfway, and she wore a dress that, because I don't know the foggiest about dressing someone who's pregnant. I've never been pregnant. I wouldn't really know where to start. People tend to throw like something loose on you,
or Empire Line.
Yeah, or something like that. Really, that's what they do. Empire Line, and then it just flows off the belly. And she wore something. It was like beaded. It was fitted. You saw the bump. And I thought, wow, like she looks incredible. I think she's probably the best like pregnant lady on the red carpet look that I've ever seen. So that's really interesting.
Yeah.
For
And
every
like,
people.
yeah. And I just think that like, I think we just need to take a moment to remember that for one, women naturally will always have somewhat of a bump where their cervix is. Because our cervix is there. It's more pronounced at different times of the month. It's more pronounced if you're a bit bloated, depending on your weight. Yes, some people have naturally like flat stomachs, but I think I also saw pictures of Taylor Swift from the Grammys. Was it the Grammys? No, the Brits. And people posted on her photo saying, oh, is she pregnant? Because of just this little like cervix bump. And the fact that also people are saying that when in her latest documentary, and I say this because let's be honest, if people are commenting on Taylor Swift's pictures, they've probably watched her documentaries, you know, like she's pretty die-hard fans, that she had a real problem with weight and judging herself, and said that in like the past that would have made her not want to eat or whatever. So the fact that people have that knowledge and then are like accusing women always of being pregnant for what is a very natural shape to our bodies. I'm not being funny. We don't point out if a man doesn't have a six-pack. You know, like naturally when men get older, they don't have a six-pack and they start to actually, if they have been quite muscly, they don't tend to look that great. Like it sort of moves.
They soften up and
And there's this real like language of expecting a woman to be like in pitch perfect shape all year round. And women have just naturally more body fat. It's not possible. It's really not. And I think we just need to have more people like a Lizzo. But then the problem is like, that's the extreme. And I don't mean that like it's the extreme that she's like massive, but there's got to be stuff in between. There can't be like a bigger lady who's like body positive and then like a size 6 on the runway. We have to have everything in between.
Well, I think we are like, as we said before, I definitely think in the past like 10 years we've seen more and more examples of that in between regular sizing. I remember one of the issues that were brought up when it comes to catering to larger sizes was that designers had a tendency to make all like the daring cutout pieces or whatever for like the smaller girls, and then when they sized it up, the designs became like more boring or like more boxy, or it wasn't as like the style wasn't translated in the same way. And on the flip side, when you are designing for someone who is bigger, maybe has a bigger bust, like the bust line is going to be different. It's going to have a level of support. It can't maybe
be strapless, you know, or like if it has, it's got to have a built-in support bra.
Yeah, like a spaghetti strap, you know. So there is that like question when we talk about representing more sizes. There is a question of like knowledge of how to really design for different body types as well.
Yeah, and actually, this is such like whether we conform to maybe the societal fashion sample size, but us everyday people have to conform to a clothing size. And I'll be honest, different parts of my body are different sizes.
Yeah.
So straight off the bat, and I'm not saying that there should be more size options. Like I know that's maybe not the solution to have like an 8B.
It would make
like,
no
you know,
difference.
like bra sizes.
Yeah,
there'll always be something that doesn't fit me perfectly. I'm not expecting that. But I think it's like, you know, there's all these sizes, and if we don't fit in one, but then actually they're not regulated across the board. There was like an Instagram post that went viral this week of like a pair of jeans from Zara, maybe one from Primark and one from like River Island or H&M. And there were like 3 different jean sizes, all the same size. So one was like a 12, one was a 14, one was a 16. So imagine if you're naturally a 12, but you have to get a 16 in a shop. What's that going to make you feel like?
No, it's not for me. That's why I buy all my jeans in the same places.
Yeah,
I'm exactly. I literally shop where I know my size, but and like,
you don't need to be. You don't need to be shamed by a shop. Not that being a size 16 is shameful, but if you want to be a certain size And also that can be triggering. We've got a nation of people, I don't know the percentage, but like anorexia and eating problems is a huge issue in this country, and it has been for a while. That's a triggering thing. I just think there needs to be more regulation maybe of stuff like that.
But then at the same time, I mean, these eating disorders cannot be solved by just, having people of a normal size on the catwalk and like actually, things like that.
Saying that. Okay, so a friend of a friend had a wedding, and one of her bridesmaids was a bigger girl. And when asked for her sizing to get some like pajamas or something like that, she just definitely said at least 2 sizes smaller than she is.
That's not helping anyone.
It's not helping anyone. So then my friend of a friend was like, oh, I'll just get the size I think she is, but I'll cut the label out and maybe sew in the other label.
Stop.
And I was like, you're not helping anyone there with acceptance if you're like feeding the problem.
Yeah.
But I think that wouldn't have happened had these bigger sizes been more accepting.
For sure. Yeah.
It's like it's a real conundrum. And also I think we really start having to have the main high street shops. I mean, RIP Topshop, but like the main high street shops offering a wider range. It's got to go past. I mean, I don't know if Zara's pretty small.
Yeah, it is.
But like sizing's got to maybe go up to like 18, 20. I don't know what's considered plus size, but yeah. Good. So when we spoke to Natalie and she was sort of saying that like she's obviously fluctuated during lockdown and then can't find clothes now in some high street shops or whatever when she was at the top end of the sizing. And that's just not good. Like women's bodies do naturally fluctuate as it is. And yeah, I think there's got to be something that it's a bit more accepting about bigger bodies.
Yeah.
Especially because I guess it's pretty common that you get to a certain age, and we all know the older you get, the harder it is to sort of keep weight off as it is. Like, so in your 60s, unless you're naturally a size 8,
you've got to be slim or you've never had kids or something like that.
Yeah, but if you've had kids, if just generally age anyway, like you're not going to be rocking around in certain sizes, so you need options. Maybe your clothes store changes at that point, who knows.
Yeah.
But like I think that is also a step of like helping people not feel so pressured. I mean, yeah,
I think we're so tied to arbitrary numbers. That's the thing. When I say that, obviously eating disorders as a whole, it's more than just fashion and sizes. Yeah. But when we talk about, Jane blogs and being embarrassed to say what size she really is, she's doing a disservice to herself being so tied to arbitrary numbers, because she's now getting clothes. It's just not going to look right on her. It's not really going to suit her and make her look the best that she can look if it's going to be too small and squeezing her and stuff like that. But I think also the one size fits all discussion really does apply to like the language that we use. You kind of touched on it before. And I think that also links to like when we talk about fashion and colors, and for way too long we've talked about nude colors, but really what we've been saying is beige, or we've been talking about a dusty pink,
Caucasian skin tone.
Yeah. And it's only now in the past, let's say 3 years really, that we've seen mainstream brands actually offer fashion in a variety of sizes to honor the actual word of nude and what nude looks like on different people. There's this brand, it's a British brand actually, and it's been around for a while. I think they went on like Dragon's Den or something, and it's called Nubian Skin. And they were like the first ones I saw on like TV or something, where they made bras and knickers, underwear. I think they did hosiery as well, and they're still around. And they had like a full color range, like from really dark skins to like deep dark to medium dark to tans to like light tans and so on. And now we see like Christian Louboutin do shoes, his like famous So Kates or whatever, in different colors. And we see a lot of like, you know, we've got Skims, she's doing her thing when it comes to nudes and stuff like that. So that's all part of the same idea.
It's all part of the same thing. I think it's just more, it's taken a bit too long to realize, because we've also seen it in foundation shades. I mean, if you wanted to get a foundation shade and you didn't have one of the 4 colors that Rimmel offered, and like one was like 00 porcelain, which was still too dark for me when I was younger. Then there was like one that was like probably called flesh, one that was called like medium, and one that was called dark. And when I say that dark is probably the color of someone who's had a spray tan, that's not inclusive. So then there was nothing in a high street in a high street shop that was a foundation shade for anyone who basically had a complex skin tone, whether that was pale, whether it had yellow undertones, whether it was darker, whatever it was. You had to go to the likes of a MAC counter or Bobbi Brown, because,
or like back in the day, if you were darker, you had to go for a fashion fair, or you had to go for like Iman. Those were the only 2 brands that I ever knew of. It was like my mum's generation, you know, like Debenhams used to carry, I think, Iman or something, but
it's important. And it's the same, like you said, like nude lips. That has to come to be a nude for everyone. You know, like, and I actually really, really bemoan the word nude, especially when it gets attached to beige. Because again, like you said, like that would just be like, you know, just everyone being a size 0. Like it's not. It's not.
I think what's driven all of this is that, and it's really weird to think about it, but for too long they thought that if they were offering something that more people could utilize and use and buy into, then they would somehow not be making money. Like, we can't, you know,
the more there is to offer, like the more they're losing money.
It was like, obviously it makes sense if you're offering different types of nudes to your customer base, because then more people could buy into your brand. But for some reason, like, the common thought was just like, no, we have to produce the most mainstream version, the size 0, the porcelain skin tone version of things, because no one else who lives outside of these very small parameters will want to buy it. You know, it was such backwards thinking at the time, and I think that it shows now that people will spend if they can see themselves or see an offering for them.
I think that point is really important. I think we've learned over all of this is that people just want to be seen, they want to be included, they want to be represented. But I think there's still a long way to go. Like, I read somewhere that some models, if they're super skinny, get like padded out in the post-production of pictures because they don't want to make them look too gaunt. And even some plus size girls turn up and they're only like a size 14. And that's not technically looking plus size or translating as it. So they get padding in their clothing or made to look bigger in post-production. And like, we don't need to see that. And I don't know if you also saw, Loose Women just posted like a picture of before and after editing. It was like, I guess it was meant to be like, accept your body. It's like Mental Health Awareness Month or whatever, isn't it? Is it month or week? I'm not sure.
Month.
It's been a mental health awareness time. But a big factor in that is, of course, Photoshop and tuning and all of that stuff. And they sort of showed what people's bodies would look like before and after. And to be honest, none of it was needed. We watched telly. We know what you look like. So we know that if you've edited like Nadia to look skinnier, we know what you've done. We see her every day on the telly if you're a Loose Woman watcher, which I'm not. But like, you're not kidding any of us.
You say that, but some people don't. And I know it's so easy for us to be like, oh, we know better, we know what we're seeing. But when you see certain images or retouched images and things like that day in, day out, it really alters your perception of the world. It's like when you see, going back to Taylor Swift, her fan base is really young. And Taylor Swift, essentially, she fits into every convention there is, let's be honest. You know,
all American girl,
blonde,
tall,
skinny,
long legs,
exactly, really rich and
got
famous.
some boobs.
She's got nothing. There's nothing against her, you know. And you even get her small.
She's the closest you can get to like white male privilege.
Yeah. Even her young fan base are commenting on her body and saying, "Is she pregnant?" As if you know, her body is changing in a very minuscule way, and they clock onto that, and it makes me think, don't you kids have mums who look nothing like Taylor Swift? You see their bodies all the time. Your mum's probably got a bit of a pouch in the front, it doesn't matter. Your mum's probably got a bit cellulite, this, that and the other, and yet we still have generations of kids who act like they have never seen fat. They have never seen rolls. They have never seen saggy boobs before. You know, we've got a lot of men out there who think all boobs are perky, some of them. And it's bizarre. You say that, oh, yeah, we are hip to the fact that these things happen. But there's still a lot of people who aren't.
That's so true. And actually, there's been a real craze at the moment as well, even on TikTok, of like, this is me eating in a calorie deficit, like as a really popular thing.
I'm not in that corner of TikTok.
I've luckily got out of it.
Okay.
But it's lots of young people. And you know what? Yeah, okay, if you want to lose a bit of weight, that is exactly how you lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
Eat less calories than you burn off. But it's also becoming younger and younger people being obsessed with stuff like that. What I think is a real solution in the fashion industry, and it was going to happen for a while back, is a grading system of editing photos, which I think is really important to be transparent about how heavily edited a photo is.
But then what's heavily edited?
I don't know. I think they would have a grade system of blurred face would be like the lowest level, or like then the next level might be sort of like, I don't know.
I don't know if that helps,
but I think some people don't realize how well people can Photoshop.
Exactly.
You know, like that you can give somebody a waist, you can slim their legs down, you can totally remove any spot that they've had their cellulite.
There's a lot of people who don't know that you can Photoshop moving imagery, video.
Yeah.
On your phone.
Actually, as much as a filter can be fun on Instagram, I also know people who don't post a photo of themselves without one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So are they believing that are they selling themselves to other people that they look like that? Because then we can blame men if they believe that that's what people's faces look like. But I think it's only portraying that, we're creating part of this problem of looking perfect and then having this self-loathing or whatever.
I think we're kidding ourselves. I think that's what happens. Like, going back to the friend of a friend who wanted to pretend that she was a different size for no real reason.
Jane blogs.
Yeah. I think she was kidding herself in that sense. I think those of us who cannot post pictures of ourselves without editing it or without a filter, we're kidding ourselves, because we know we don't look like that. But if we don't have to face our real face online, then it doesn't exist. It's like, did it even happen if you didn't post about it, type thing, you know?
For sure.
I recognized really early on that, because I don't post pictures of myself edited, because I know I would have a complex about the way I look. I know that for sure. And there are some filters on Instagram now that I'll like mess about with, and I'll film like something silly just to see how it looks, to test it out. But there's some filters on that. The editing is so slight, but it is amazing, and it makes me look
of the nose, slightly bigger lips.
Yeah.
Clearing the skin, nice eyelashes.
Yeah. And
maybe
I'm just
like pinching in the jaw.
Yeah. Even the little pixie elf one I did most recently, I was like, I look good as an elf. As an elf, I think I look better as an elf than I do as my real self. Yeah,
it's hard. And actually, the only benefit I have with those filters is I have freckles. So I actually looked stupid with one on because it clears out my complexion, so I don't look like myself. But for people who don't have sort of freckles, I can imagine then if you maybe are feeling sad about your skin and you sort of, it will remove your bad looking skin or something. I just think it's creating a problem. Like, and I think that's ultimately as well. And I definitely have before face tuned pictures back in the day. I got back from traveling and I was a bit bigger because I ate like every day was holiday, ice cream every day. And I didn't like some pictures of myself and I edited them. And I'm just like, who did I do that for? Because
you did it for yourself.
I know, but that's the problem, isn't it? That it's all fed into what we've seen before. And I'm hoping that as I say it, I don't think it's true. I'm hoping that generations that are younger than us won't have it, because we grew up with, you know, like a OK magazine or Heat, circles of shame on cellulite, or there was genuinely a page where it'd be like +5 pounds, -7 of people who'd gained or lost weight and praising them or whatever. And we're fortunate that I'm sure there's been a passing of an act where we're not allowed to speak about people like that, because even the likes of the Daily Mail don't comment on women's weight anymore.
That is true. But then, I mean, sometimes you don't have to say the words to convey the image and the messaging you're trying to put across. I don't know how things are getting better in some instances, but I think that fashion and the world that surrounds fashion is still continuing to push a one size fits all for monetary gain. I think even when we talk about bigger girls, and you've said about plus size models who aren't really that big and they're given things to like plump out their bodies and padding to make them look bigger than they are, we still have plus size models. I can't remember her name. Maybe if I remember her name, we'll post her. But she's gorgeous. She's a bigger girl. She's a very successful model. But even she has an hourglass figure. You know, she's bigger girl, but she has the right figure. And that's the thing. She's a bigger girl, but she still has this like very European face. She's white. She still has a very European face, a very idealized mainstream face. Her face is very slim still. You know, yes, she's bigger, but is she experiencing being a bigger girl as many others do? No. So we still have that idealized version of you know, size, of color and things like that within fashion and what we see like in magazines and tabloids and whatever. I don't think we can escape it is my point.
No, I think you're right. I think it's something that we just have to be aware of. I think that going forward, it's something we just all have to be aware of, that it happens, and just to sort of catch yourself in those moments of being like, is that what I'm meant to be like? And then just remember, these celebrities have a trainer at home. They have a very different work schedule to you. They're not a 9 to 5. They've got a chef. They've got all sorts that makes them look a certain way. But also, fashion can look good on any size.
For sure.
Like it might be, like we said, that, fashion brands change designs, but there are also probably designs that look better on a curvy body than look better on a stick body.
For sure.
So just like relish in that as sort of, you know, different styles suit different shapes, and just celebrate that that's what you can own.
Yeah. That's such a good point. I mean, like a bodycon cotton pretty little thing dress is not fashion. You know, that's not style. That's just like, I'm going to wear something that's tight because look at my body. when you talk about real fashion and real styling, it's like the clothes are supposed to shape. It's supposed to create the shape and the curves and the lines. That is fashion, and putting things together in an exciting, dynamic way. That is fashion. It doesn't make you stylish because you've worn an all beige outfit from, you know.
And there's not an
I saw it here first.
Inch or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't think fashion industry can be blamed for all of it, but it's definitely a vehicle in which we like idealize ourselves. And I think for that reason, we'll never get rid of this one size ideal.
For sure. And actually, one of the articles I read before we did this was saying that we can't just blame fashion. We get it from every direction, even in storytelling. And they said that even in sort of Roald Dahl books, which is what I definitely grew up reading, that the heroines were slim and the baddies, the villains, were fat. And that is a point in storytelling that is used as a vehicle. And, you know, fashion isn't the only reason for that. Absolutely not. It's a societal problem as well. But fashion can play their part. Like, they have a lot of countries have banned models like being a certain weight. And obviously there's laws on ages and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's a societal thing that we just have to be aware of.
Definitely. Got anything else you want to add on top of that?
But the human body's phenomenal. Celebrate it, you know. And women go through a lot, so just like respect your body is sort of my parting words. I should take my own advice. So
I think like my final piece of advice is that although I love fashion, I love to look at it, I love all the nonsense that comes with it, I think the most important thing you can do for yourself is like advocate for yourself. Do not put yourself down. There is enough of that in the world. Not saying I'm a perfect person or that you're a perfect person or whatever, but you don't add value and quality to your life by being harsh on yourself, by really fickle things such as like, you know, appearance. I have a double chin. I have a double chin all the time.
Everyone,
you know,
in an angle.
And I tell you something, it's never held me back in life. Maybe it's added something. Maybe it's added a chin or two in my life. I don't know. But yeah, that's how I just approach the whole ideal of one size fits all.
And it doesn't. We all look different for a reason.
Well, thanks, guys, for listening to our episode. I hope you enjoyed our kind of 2 cents on the topic of sizing, fashion, ideals, beauty standards. We're going to put a poll out